Today on the John Ankerberg Show, does God exist? A recent Pew survey revealed that more than 1 in 5 Americans now consider themselves atheist, agnostic, or nothing in particular. And today I've asked philosopher Dr. William Lane Craig to respond by presenting 5 good reasons why God does exist. Dr. Craig is considered by many to be the top Christian philosopher of our generation and has debated many of the new atheists in some of the leading universities around the world. Dr. Craig holds a PhD in philosophy from the University of Birmingham in England and also a Doctor of Theology degree from the University of Munich. Join us for this special edition of the John Ankerberg Show. Welcome to our program. I'm John Ankerberg. Thanks for joining us today. I'm glad that you're here and you won't want to miss this information. My guest is Dr. William Lane Craig, who's one of the finest philosophers of our time. He's engaged in debates and dialogues with many of the most well-known skeptics in our world at some of the most prestigious universities around the world. And Bill, I'm glad that you're here today. And many of your debates with leading atheists have entered on such topics as atheism versus Christianity, or does God exist, or what good evidence is there to think that God exists? And today I'd like you to share with our audience 5 good reasons why you believe God exists.
Very good. I'm convinced, John, that the hypothesis that God exists explains a wide range of the data of human experience. For example, God is the best explanation of the origin of the universe. Second, God is the best explanation of the fine-tuning of the universe for intelligent life. Thirdly, God is the best explanation of the existence of objective moral values and duties in the world. Number 4, God is the best explanation for the historical facts concerning Jesus of Nazareth. And finally, number 5, God can be personally known and experienced. Together, I think these provide a powerful, cumulative case for believing that God exists.
All right, start with number 1, the origin of the universe.
One of the most remarkable facts about modern physics is that, in contrast to scientists of bygone days, modern science believes that the universe is not eternal in the past, but had a beginning a finite time ago. The controlling paradigm of modern astrophysics, which is the study of the universe as a whole, is that the universe began in an event called the Big Bang about 14 billion years ago. And I think that most lay people don't understand that according to this theory, not simply all matter and energy, but physical space and time themselves came into being at the moment of the Big Bang. So that the Big Bang represents literally the origin of the universe out of nothing. Now the difficulty is, of course, that out of nothing, nothing comes. To say that the universe just popped into being uncaused out of nothing would be worse than magic. When a magician pulls a rabbit out of the hat, at least you've got the magician, not to mention the hat. But on atheism, you have to say that the universe just popped into being uncaused out of absolutely nothing, which is surely absurd. So that it seems to me far more rational to say that there is a transcendent cause of the universe which brought it into existence.
You've got a great illustration of what you're talking about using a balloon.
It's very important to understand that on the Big Bang model, the theory is not that the material universe is expanding into a pre-existing empty space. Rather, according to this model, space and time themselves come into being at the Big Bang. And a very good way to visualize this is by imagining a balloon with buttons pasted onto the surface of the balloon. Now the buttons are glued in place, so they don't move relative to the surface of the balloon. But as you blow up the balloon, the buttons will get further and further and further apart because the surface of the balloon is expanding. Now the surface of the balloon is just like our three-dimensional space. As space expands, the galaxies get further and further and further apart. Now this has the radical implication that as you trace the expansion back in time, they get closer and closer and closer together until at some point in the finite past, the entire universe is contracted down to a single point before which it literally did not exist. So that the controlling paradigm of contemporary cosmology is that the universe began to exist out of nothing about 14 billion years ago.
Yeah, and I think that lay people pick up on the web, and they pick up when they're reading some of the scientific journals and even pop literature, is that philosophers of science are saying, stay tuned, because really, instead of nothing, this nothing is really something. And that's not what the theory is really saying. Explain that.
There has been a great deal of misinformation in popular press and television shows about quantum mechanics with regard to the origin of the universe. It's said that in quantum mechanics you can get particles that fluctuate into existence out of the quantum vacuum, and that therefore it is true that something can come into being from nothing, and so you can get the universe coming into existence without a cause from nothing. What these persons fail to explain is that the quantum vacuum in physics is not nothing. It is not what the layman thinks of as a vacuum. The quantum vacuum is a sea of energy, a sea of violent activity governed by physical laws. It is most emphatically not nothing. So that even if the early stages of the universe during the first split second of its existence is characterized or described by a quantum mechanical vacuum, that is not the origin of the universe out of nothing. And the point is that that quantum vacuum state cannot have persisted to infinity past. It had a beginning, and therefore we're thrust into the question of why did the origin of the universe occur? What brought the universe into being?
Why is this a good reason that God exists?
Well, what it points to is a transcendent cause of the physical universe. And when you reflect on what properties such a cause would have to have, another number of very theologically significant attributes fall out. For example, this would have to be an uncaused being. It would have to be non-physical and immaterial because it created all the matter in the universe. It would have to be non-temporal, that is to say timeless, because it created time as well as space. It would therefore have to be changeless. It would have to be enormously powerful in order to bring the universe into existence. And moreover, I would argue this being is also plausibly personal as well. Now, why is that? Well, it's the only way you can explain how to get a temporal effect with a beginning from a permanent, timeless cause that has existed eternally. If the cause were just an impersonal set of mechanically operating conditions, then once the sufficient conditions are given, the effect has to be given as well. If the conditions are there permanently from eternity, the effect would have to be there permanently.
Yeah, you got a great illustration using water freezing.
Yes. Take water, for example. The cause of water's freezing is the temperature being below 0 degrees Celsius. If the temperature were below 0 degrees from eternity past, the water would be frozen from eternity past. It would be impossible for the water to just begin to freeze a finite time ago. So how can you get a temporal effect with a beginning from a permanent eternal cause? I can think of only one answer to that, and that is if the cause is a personal agent endowed with freedom of the will, who can therefore create a new effect without any prior determining conditions. For example, a man sitting from eternity could freely will to stand up. And so you would have a new effect arise from an eternal cause. And so we're brought not simply to a transcendent cause of the universe, but to its personal creator.